All right, everybody, welcome. This is the Friday podcast of Along the Watchtower. I am LM Walker, and today's show, I said it was Friday already. It's the 19th of February, 2021. We are in the future, and then tell that to the person tomorrow. But anyway, things are going well. It has been a tumultuous week, to say the least. Engaging in some new activities. Always try to expand on what you're doing. Always try to grow, incorporate new tools, new dynamics into your person. And so I've been trying to do that. Wow. There's a lot that's been going on in the world, not just politically, not just, culturally, but just in general. There's just a lot that's been happening. A lot has been happening on the markets. A lot of new technologies that are coming out. But the culture war, as it stands, is still kind of spiraling backwards. And perhaps we'll get to it. But up on the itinerary, Representative Jim Jordan, singular, was talking about how the culture war is the most important thing that Americans need to focus on right now. And it's like, really, given that there's millions, 18 million plus Americans without health insurance. That number is probably now somewhere near 20, 25. Millions of Americans without jobs, homes. There's a pandemic raging, and irrelevant of how you feel about the pandemic in particular. The response to the pandemic has crippled the economy and people's lives on a multitude of levels. And so, it's really indicative of Republicans' need to try and steer the party anywhere but towards Trump. But the problem is that the culture war, from that aspect, anti-cancel culture, is an element of Trumpism. So not necessarily aligning himself directly, but trying to find some sort of rallying point to kind of pull them his way. It's an understandable tactic given, the gravity that Trump has on the Republican Party right now. They are in a desperate situation where because what it is that, yes, they can pull a third of Republicans, but that's not going to win on a federal level. It barely wins on a state level. So, it's definitely, an interesting time to be alive. And I can't imagine what, 10 years from now will look like. Oh, that reminds me, there's been I think Elon came out with a new demonstration for the Neuralink I need to check out. This weekend I'm going to work on trying to integrate, technology, more technology into the podcast. I might just have to expand the podcast. You might just get more of me. My God. But at any rate, let me stop rambling. Please like, share, and subscribe if you dig what I'm doing. Like I said, always try to incorporate new facets of yourself. Getting better all the time. Let's start with something less toxic. No, it's not really less toxic. Actually, it's toxic to the utmost degree. Remember Ghislaine Maxwell, right? The lieutenant, we'll call, the second in command to one formerly living suicided Jeffrey Epstein. Well, she was caught, and she was caught, and then the Wayfair thing happened, and don't even get me started on that. But then she just kind of fell off the radar. Well, recently she said, this is from Daily Mail, Ghislaine Maxwell admitted Jeffrey Epstein did have tapes of Trump and the Clintons after she was tricked by 60 Minutes producer in 2016, but refused to help locate them because she wanted Hillary to win. Ghislaine told 60 Minutes producer Ira Rosen in 2016 that she didn't know where Epstein's tapes of Donald were. Rosen, an Emmy-winning producer, revealed he tricked Maxwell into confirming the recordings existed in his new memoir, Ticking Clock, released Tuesday. The encounter took place in early 2016 ahead of the U.S. election. I want the tapes. I know he was videotaping everyone, and I want the tapes of Trump with the girls, Rosen said, acting on a hunch. Maxwell, 59, replied, I don't know where they are, confirming their existence. Rosen writes Maxwell refused to help him locate the tapes because she didn't want Donald Trump to get elected. I know the way you people think. If you do one side, you must do the other. If you get the tapes on Trump, you have to do Clinton, she told him. Ghislaine Maxwell appeared to have admitted that Jeffrey Epstein was taping his famous friends, including Trump and the Clintons, in a meeting with Ava Rosen. The British socialite, who was accused of procuring underage girls for the billionaire pedophile, reportedly told Rosen she didn't know where such recordings were after he told her to hand over the footage. The conversation took place ahead of the 2016 election, and Maxwell, who supported Hillary, refused to help, saying, "If you get tapes on Trump, you have to do Bill Clinton." That's right, tit for tat, and that's one. I just looked over and saw Beyonce's booty over here. That was very, very distracting. And that's another thing. Yeah. Oh, what do I have it on the itinerary? They're getting a divorce. By they, I mean Kim Kardashian and Kanye West. But Beyonce's butt. But anyway, the anecdote, which is included in Rosen's book, released on Tuesday, in which he dishes about the time, blah blah blah. And there's not a lot there. I just wanted to point that out. New details coming out about that all the time. Mainly, though, thus far about the financial connections. Some of which are superficial in that he had ties and relations, not sexual, just he was affiliated or acquainted with members of Deutsche Bank and things like that. And then there's also financial elements with major banking institutions around the world because you had to get that money laundered somehow. But we're gonna move right along here. Gorilla Girl Tessica Brown GoFundMe under investigation. This is the glue girl. This is the first glue girl. Because there's actually a second glue girl, right? And you're just like, what? So Tessica Brown, her GoFundMe actually got $23,000. And I just looked over and saw what looks to be Chris Evans and Common kissing over a Cadbury cream egg. What is going on? But she got like $23,000. Said she was going to keep $3,000 and then donate the rest of it. Because she got her operation for free, and everyone knows this. So let's see. And given that context, it's no wonder that there ended up being a second Gorilla Glue girl. Gorilla Glue girl. You can't do it and say that 10 times fast. Anyway, so Tessica Brown went viral for cementing her hair with Gorilla Glue. For listeners, unfortunately can't see, but there's a clip of the operation going on. She actually ends up after the operation with her hair looking fantastic. It looks like it just got done at the salon. But she claims the GoFundMe she set up is now under investigation, and she can't withdraw the funds, which she plans to donate to charity. The Louisiana native, who is now out of the sticky situation and rocking a fresh, natural look, set up a GoFundMe early in her plight for help with medical bills and buying wigs, but now that she's decided to donate the money, the company won't let her withdraw it. They won't even let me release it to me because that many people have called in and said it was a fraudulent account. Every time you look at it, it says it's under investigation. When Brown first set up the GoFundMe, she only asked for $1,500, but it ended up going to $23,000. Now that she's cemented her viral fame with a celebrity management team and a merchandise line, she said she wanted to give back the cash. I'm like, we can donate to Dr. Obeng and the rest of that. I'm going to donate it to 3 families in St. Bernard Parish, referencing the celebrity plastic surgeon who fixed her due and the South Louisiana locale she calls home. It's going to be pretty upsetting because who are y'all to say, this was a fraudulent account? For one, the doctor brought me from St. Bernard Parish to Hollywood, like I seen the sign, to take this out of my head. Like this man didn't have to do none of this. Obeng, a Ghana native, runs the Restore Worldwide Foundation and travels overseas to perform constructive surgeries in people in developing countries who wouldn't otherwise have access to the procedures. Nice. He didn't charge Brown for the procedure, right? To remove the glue from her hair and said it was the doctor's benevolence and other donors who made it possible for that to happen. I can show my appreciation by giving the money away. Yeah, grassroots movements are don't ever get support one way or the other. And it's definitely understandable, but she seems to be very upfront and forward about the whole matter. And, GoFundMe spokesperson told the Post in a statement they're in touch with Brown and working on her before the withdrawal. Prior to the withdrawal, she must clearly state on the campaign page how she intends to use the funds. Brown said she did edit the page to say she was using the money for expenses related to the ordeal, but it hasn't been updated to reflect her new charitable plans. All right, well, then, It'll be good. Just give it time. But then there's a second one. TikToker who accidentally put Gorilla Glue in hair claims she will get surgery. What is this? Ivani Reyes, better known as the second of the TikTokers who have accidentally put Gorilla Glue in their hair, says she has raised enough money to pay for surgery. Reyes recently uploaded a video where she revealed that she had a bit of a bathroom mishap, which caused her hair to stick together. Despite an apparent trip to the hospital and attempts to use coconut oil, she has to resort to surgery. Additionally, she says the GoFundMe page she set up has now reached its goal. In a video, she says, I want to thank everyone who donated. I now have enough funds to get the surgery. I'll be flying out to LA. Thank you guys so much. I raised enough money. In a previous post, she thanked her followers, and they donated $3,000 for their support. Some skeptics out there claim she's joking and that it's a publicity stunt. Reyes' story emerged earlier this week after Tessica Brown. Yes. Brown also set up a GoFundMe, but surpassed her target to 23,000. I don't know why it says 21. So the grift is real. It reminds me of the instant in which a GoFundMe was set up for a homeless gentleman out in California, and they got to like 200,000 or something absurd, and then they just kept the money. There are plenty of cases in which you can read of people, people taking advantage of the desire of others to do good. People want to be involved with something wholesome, and that's definitely an easy target. But into the depths of politics we go. The Orwellian present, which is a nightmare, is real. We talked about yesterday. Was it yesterday? Either yesterday or the day before, Facebook, right? So in light of everything that has been happening with social media, the increasing pressures that the Silicon left is putting on our political system, and the vocal minority. That reminds me. A Huffington Post article came out, and it was like 53% of Americans don't know what cancel culture is. And this is what I've been talking about the vocal minority that is kind of codified on social media, right? It doesn't. You have two choices. You can either get a few loud people or get a million people that have been silenced. And so, see that all right, so we'll get to that. But the thing is here to always keep in mind is to understand the power that the Silicon left has, okay? We saw in Nigeria after the 2020 elections that they outright banned Twitter during the election season, during election time period in their country. I believe it was Nigeria. We saw in Australia the desire to work with publishers for news publications through social media, so that A, they're not left out in the dark for proceeds, and B, they have some sort of idea of how their information may or may not be used. So Zuckerberg, because Google ended up partnering with them just fine, we read, but then Zuckerberg's just like, well, screw you then. You guys can't. No one in Australia then can view news posts nor post news. And that is power. That is power to blacklist, in a sense, an entire country. Now, again, I always want to present the other side of this argument. Oh, well, it's just Facebook, it's just social media. The problem is that there is a litany of people, millions, billions, in fact, who would disagree with you. Despite the fact that, yes, for some of us, we can simply turn it off, go to actual news publications, try and engage in the content that we're reading and digesting. Most people take the too long didn't read it approach, and they will sift through information. They will take a brief sort of a brief abject look at something, and they don't keep it pushing. And 90% of this is through social media. They are on social media more than they're mostly on doing anything else on their phones. So the reality of the matter is that most of the information that is garnered for people throughout the day, most of the time, when they're outside of their homes and not viewing the television for 10 minutes, is through their phones. It is an interconnected tool that cannot be overstated and cannot be overshadowed. That being said, what ended up happening is that the band ended up, we don't know if it's accidental. We'll read, and I'm not sure. But as far as I know, as far as I've read through thus far, it ended up being similar to what happened with YouTube when YouTube introduced the 10,000 content curators, and they're supposed to remove, hate-filled content and content that espouses hate speech and encourages and incites violence in this, and they ended up removing educational and archival footage pages with archival footage from World War II, educational footage pages talking about World War II and history in general. History was violent and bloody, and there was a lot of oppression, and they didn't have discretion for life. Life meant nothing to rulers and oligarchs and plutocrats back then. Just like it kind of doesn't mean anything now, right? There's like now when it's politically expedient, you can see a let off of the foot that is the lockdowns that have been a government staple under the Trump administration, but now under the Biden administration, despite the fact that we have a new variant of COVID that we are thinking is more deadly, we're going to open things back up. Could it be because Cuomo might be under investigation? He's not. He's under investigation now by the FBI and the Attorney General. Could it be that he might be facing charges because he let 15,000 people die while he allowed an organization to create language? Okay, so we'll talk about this. This is later on down. I'll get to this. But basically, newsflash, Cuomo, and this is what I've been saying since November, he's a fucking politician like any other. But not only that, he's a New York politician. Right? New York politicians are notorious. They're notorious for being cutthroat. But this is why, when anything that Trump did and people were, oh my God, how could, it's like, guys, this is Donald J. Trump from New York. They're sharks. These people are sharks, right? So this guy, not Donald Trump, Cuomo, he let this organization, the Organization for the Greater Institute of Hospitals or something like that. Basically, they're an organization that paid millions of dollars into his campaign, right? You see where this is going. So now that this cropped up, what ended up happening is the organization drafted language for the state corona bill, right? Where it says that business executives in nursing homes are not liable for any wrongful deaths that occur. So let's just recap. Organization pays for his campaign or pays millions into his campaign. Emergency happens that directly affects nursing homes and their profits and their asses. So they draft something they draft a legal bill for him to introduce, because they're not part of the legal system. They're a private entity, and he introduces this bill that absolves them from any liability or wrongful death claim. So his ass is in the fire now. It could finally be over for him. And the irony is that he was touting himself as the champion of COVID. He wrote a book. He had all this stuff. Everybody was thinking 2024, this could be Cuomo's year. It's amazing. No, actually, I mean, like I said, it doesn't amaze me. I didn't think, though, however, it went that deep. But let's dial it back. Let's rewind a little bit. Let's get back to Facebook here. Facebook's botched Australia news ban hits health departments, charities, and its own pages. Social media companies' ban on sharing news has also affected dozens of government, non-for-profit, and community pages. The Bureau of Meteorology, state health departments, and Western Australian opposition leader charities, and Facebook itself are among those to have been hit by Facebook's ban on news in Australia. How does Facebook get hit with Facebook's ban? Thursday morning, Facebook began preventing Australian news sites from posting, while also stopping Australian users from sharing or viewing content from any other news outlets, both Australian and international. Wow. Whoa. Let's back up. I thought... I didn't... Wow. So they began preventing Australian news sites from posting, while also stopping Australian users from sharing or viewing content from any news outlets. And I just thought that it stopped with Australian news outlets. But it's a news blackout throughout Facebook entirely. The social media giant said that it made a decision in response to the news media bargaining code currently before the Senate, which would force Facebook and Google to negotiate with news companies for payment of content. While the ban was only meant to target Australian news publishers, dozens of pages. See, this is what I'm saying. Okay. Dozens of pages run by key government agencies, community pages, union pages, charity organizations, and politicians were blocked for several hours. Australia's main source of weather information, Bureau of Meteorology, said Thursday morning that it had been blocked and was advising users to go to its direct website. Let's see. I wonder what they want. I'm just for our listeners. I clicked. I just wanted to see what Facebook was saying. I mean, it doesn't like say, hey, you've been banned, you can no longer use this. It just like empties the site. That's weird. Yeah. It just you go to the site and you can't see anything. There's nothing there. And it's even happened. It actually happened on the Facebook page as well. That's hilarious. Oh my God. All right. So yeah. Let's keep going here. Don't want to lose track of time. So an anti-Trump Capitol rioter sold footage for $35,000. So of course my first question is, well, was he there? I'm just curious. I mean, he obviously was there. Not was he there, but was he? What was he doing? Was this the like his? There's the BLM gentleman who was also there filming, and he was inciting. He was caught on film inciting things. Not only did he keep his page, but he got a slap on the wrist. So, and I'm navigating pages for listeners right now. And so my it's like because the way that they went towards anyone who was there, let alone specific elements of people or types of people who may or may not have been participating, has not been uniformal. And that has been troublesome for me, obviously. I'm trying to decide which way to navigate. So we'll navigate this way first, and then we'll go to cancel culture. Yeah, let's go to cancel culture first. So Jim Jordan. No. You know what? Okay, because the fact of the matter remains is that all of this, the culture war is about political power. It is. So let's start here. Anti-Trump Capitol rioter sold footage for $35,000 to NBC and CNN. So an accused rioter. Thank you. All right. So at least there you go. We kind of get that out of the way immediately. He was a rioter. He was also recording things, and oh my God, he made bank. So accused rioter John Sullivan sold. Oh, I think is this the BLM guy? Oh, this is the BLM guy. This is the guy. This is the guy. This is what happens when I set up a show right before I get onto recording. This is the guy. So this is the guy I've been talking about. So the BLM guy, not only did he get a slap on the wrist, not only did he get to remain with his social media while he was on camera antagonizing and egging on the riots, but he sold his footage for $35,000 to NBC and CNN each, meaning he made $70,000. Grift. The whole thing is a grift. The whole fucking thing is a scam. It is a scam. That is there's no principle there. Oh, well, he has to fund the revolution. Really? That's going to be, really? Come on. He thinks the whole thing is look at his picture. For listeners who can't see this picture, there are no words to describe it. He in the picture, he's bug-eyed with this little like curly fro type of deal. He I don't know. You have to go look up a picture of John Sullivan. I'm not going to describe him, but the whole thing is just a gimmick for whatever. Let's just read. News came as prosecutors on Tuesday tried to ban the Utah provocateur, a self-styled anti-Trump activist who they alleged infiltrates protests to cause chaos and records. He's a provocateur from accessing social media because everyone else who was a part of the riot allegedly and who was being charged, who got arrested and being charged, they couldn't use the internet. They got banned from social media. Sullivan maintains that he is a journalist for his website Insurgents USA. Okay, it's in the name. This is The bizarre, the level of bizarre is just it is becoming unpalatable, right? This shouldn't be difficult to argue in court for prosecutors. If you take the precedent that's being set around the country, this shouldn't even be in question. Everything that's happening should be uniformal. If you were there, if you were rioting, if you were, it doesn't. Okay, you filming something and selling it to the news does not absolve you of your behavior. I shouldn't have to explain that. So I'm not going to elaborate further on that. Let's finish. Sullivan maintains that he is a journalist for his website, Insurgents USA. In his defense attorney filed invoices for the $35,000 that NBC and CNN each apparently paid for the rights to use the video. But the feds allege in a criminal complaint that Sullivan actively participated in encouraging the siege. Because he did. He's filmed. He's on film. As throngs, we know the story. Sullivan helped the rioters scale the wall up to an entrance of the Capitol building. He then entered the They have the blow-by-blow because I want to keep emphasizing this. He was on film. He was recorded. Okay. He then entered the Capitol through a window that had been smashed by a rioter. As he recorded footage inside the building, Sullivan allegedly said, "We gotta get this burned. It's our house, we gotta get this burned." I mean, this shouldn't be disputed. Still recording, Sullivan moved with the crowd to outside the speaker's lobby where rioters faced off with police officers who were securing a doorway. He then captured an officer, fatally shoot rioter Ashley Babbitt as she attempted to climb through a broken window that was being guarded by the officers. Footage he sold to several news networks. Yeah, I got that footage. That's him. He did that. Yeah. It is heart-stopping footage for sure. On January 6th, CNN was contacted by a reputable agent regarding an eyewitness footage. Sullivan was arrested soon after the riot and indicted by a grand jury last week on 6 charges, including obstruction of an official proceeding, civil disorder, and disorderly conduct. In a court hearing Tuesday, a magistrate judge in Washington blocked prosecutors' request that Sullivan be barred from his social media while he awaits. Why? I don't understand. The judge did, however, order Sullivan to cease work for Insurgents USA and said he could not use social media to incite. So wait a minute. So you're going to let him use social media even though you acknowledge by de facto, right, by saying, hey, you can't work for Insurgents USA anymore and you can't incite riots or on social media. So by saying that he can't do it, you're suggesting that he may be prone to do it, which then leads one to the question of why don't you just bar him from using it? I mean, the politics of all of this supersede the morality. I don't have time to waste. Feds now say right-wing extremists responsible for the majority of deadly attacks last year. That is interesting. Let me read. Let me not go on a tangent. Let's do this. The U.S. government is acknowledging for the first time that right-wing extremists were responsible for the majority of fatal domestic terrorist attacks last year, according to an internal report circulated by the DHS and obtained by Yahoo News somehow. The review of last year's domestic terror incidents by a DHS Fusion Center, which shares threat-related information between the federal, state, and local partners, found that although civil unrest and anti-government violence were associated with non-affiliated right-wing and left-wing actors, right-wing domestic violent extremists were responsible for the majority of fatal attacks in the homeland. So civil unrest, anti-government violence were associated with non-affiliated right-wing and left-wing actors. So this is actually that actually is probably the statement I would agree with. I'm not going to sit there and say the statement is factual. However, that to me kind of signals some validity to its existence, because that's actually an argument that's often made, that the left kind of mainly participates in this wanton, sort of disorganized, like chaotic sort of violence, right? Something you're likely to see at a protest or a rally or a riot, etc. But that the right tends to, be much more organized, much more tactically sound. At the very least, one would expect that vets would populate the right more than the left. So you always have that scenario, which has definitely happened in the past, to contend with. So and that's that. I can definitely agree with that. But of course, that makes me want to pull out the Google and just go through. It's like, okay, violent attacks, and I'm thinking mass shootings, and I'm thinking bombings, just right off the top of my head. And it's like, were the last, because I know right off the top of my head, the last mass shooting in August 2020, I think it was August, Ohio, he was a self-proclaimed leftist. He was an Elizabeth Warren supporter, blah 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 blah. But that's just the one that I think of off the top of my head. That's not. I'm not trying to like shade it any one way or the other. But I'd like to look into that. But let me just finish up here. The report produced by the Joint Regional Intelligence Center, a DHS-funded fusion center, was sent out to police and law enforcement nationwide as part of an intelligence sharing system created after 9/11. While independent think tanks and outside groups have been pointing to the rise in right-wing violence for some time, this appears to be the first known instance of a government or of an official government or law enforcement agency clearly acknowledging the trend, though senior officials have noted the rise in white supremacist attacks. The report also comes not long after the end of the Trump administration, which was criticized for downplaying right-wing violence. Yeah. Okay. So then you have Jim Jordan trying to, culminate the Republican Party, because it's just looking bad for them. Republicans are just looking bad. And you know what? That's because, and listen, my shade goes both ways, right? One party takes advantage of the disenfranchised, disillusioned nature of the working class, of the average person, the desire for the average person to not have to live in paycheck to paycheck and struggle and have everything be about hardship just to get by, right? So the Democratic Party is supposed to be representative, right, of that part of the populace for the most part. That isn't to say there isn't disenfranchised rural voters who vote for Republicans because of their conservative values. That's a culture. It's more of a cultural thing. With Democrats, it's generally an economic thing that's supposed to be looked at, right? Look after the working man. Make sure that the average person is able to have health care and go to a decent school and work a decent wage and not have to, be a rat in the race just to make ends meet. Right. And so you have this situation where the culture war has turned against conservatism, because conservatism has been turned towards, the inorganic oppressive nature of like the religious right. So coming up in the 80s and the 90s, you had the religious right, and then you had, the semi sort of populist left. And post George Bush, you really had the neocon right and the pseudo populist left. And then you had Barack Obama, and you had the basically anti-Obama right and the pseudo populist left. You see this going, and at every point you had one party that seemed antagonistic towards people and one party that ostensibly represented people, but in the end didn't do anything for them. And so tit for tat, back and forth, these two parties have gone, at least this is just describing my lifetime from Bill Clinton forward. And then finally we arrive at Trump, to which neither party wants anything to do with him. And he completely embodies everything antithetical about the political system, but at the same time, he's everything that the political system is. It's all its cronyism. It's all its corruption. It's all its own like moral and spiritual bankruptcy, all embodied in a living, breathing person. My fucking God. It's all in a dude with a mouth, in a brain, some sort of thing that's a brain. It's functional enough to get him to where he's gotten to in life. We'll say that much. And he's antithetical to everything, anything decent and wholesome. And he becomes president. That's the representation of where we were, not only in our political institution, but in our cultural bankruptcy. This is the same guy that we cheered on for firing people. This is the same guy that we knew made, tens of thousands of people lose thousands of dollars in Trump University and laughed about it. This is the same guy that we knew did not care and has not cared for anyone but himself his entire life. And we allowed him to become president. Now, one could argue about the integrity of the elections and this, that, and the third. But the fact still remains, as far as the Republicans go, he was able to get the ticket. This is what I've been saying about what is good for people and what is politically expedient. Now, finally, it's kind of like a curvature here, finally meeting at one, where the power of people to get the person that will represent them elected it's at its zenith. When we saw Bernie Sanders and what he represented, and that it was possible for someone who seemed like he was actually going to do something for everyone to get to that position, it became a reality. It became a reality. And yes, he didn't win, but we saw the possibility of it. We saw the capability of it. So after Trump, like I've been saying, it is up to the Democrats to lose everything. But let's read, because this is definitely it makes a valid point. But it's a grift. It's from the avenue of a grift. Jim Jordan, amid panic, cancel culture, most dangerous thing happening today. This is HuffPost, so take it with it's gonna be smothered and bias. As thousands of Americans see right off the bat. Is there a less biased article? Because the first words is thousands of Americans continue to die. The Republican lawmaker as thousands of Americans continue to die from the raging COVID-19 pandemic, Representative Jim Jordan from Ohio called cancel culture the most. It's like, can you just tell me the news? I don't want to hear your story. Here, let's see. Well, the Independent's probably not going to do much better, but we can only hope. Yeah, no, not really. They all started the same. Congressman Jim Jordan has doubled down on his claim that cancel culture is the biggest threat facing the United States as a deadly pandemic which has killed nearly 500,000 Americans rages on. Yes. The Ohio Republican congressman, a Trump loyalist who has risen to national prominence through his frequent appearances on Fox. Like, you can't just tell me what he said. All right. So, that being said, we understand that he mentioned cancel culture as being the most important issue for Americans right now. And I've often said it is important for people, for humans to be able to express themselves without fear of reprisal, as long as they are expressing themselves out of good faith, right? You can't enter into a conversation presuming that someone is aiming to offend you, ready to jump off at the drop of a dime. You can't enter a society claiming that you want cultural integration, and then when someone wears a sombrero, call them a racist. This is ridiculous. Situations where people wearing Halloween costumes are like canceled. Now that isn't to say that I feel like for Halloween you should dress up as Hitler. I don't really think that's the look. I don't really think that's the look. But again, we've seen the damage that cancel culture has wrought. That isn't to say I'm going to sit here and suggest that the collateral damage from the pandemic, not even necessarily the pandemic itself, isn't a worse situation. But that requires maturity on the part of the populace to kind of realize that. One doesn't necessarily outweigh the other. One is tangible. We can see and feel one. One can be pointed out, but the other is just as important. Expression is important. Being able to have a dialogue and share concepts is important. Being able to look at each other and say, you were an idiot 20 years ago, but you've been pretty okay as far as I've known you, man. What was that about? Being able to have that ability to appeal to our better nature is important. But as I said, only half of Americans have heard of cancel culture. Of course, they dovetail it to Jim Jordan's statements, and it's a HuffPost YouGov poll. So, But the reality of the matter is that a very vocal minority can still do a lot of damage. I mean, look at voting blocks in different states, in different cities, right? They're minorities, but they're an important, crucial part. So, but that doesn't well, no. That only further emphasizes the point that I've been making, trying to make, that the Republicans need to pull and drag Trumpists kicking and screaming. Otherwise, over the next, I don't know, maybe 2 election cycles, you're going to see an outcropping. At the very least, the next election cycle. So 2024, you're definitely going to see, and this is my first prediction. You're definitely going to see a Trumpist at least ascend to the top 3, if not the top 2 of the party for the Republican ticket. You're going to see it. They're going to try it. They don't have a choice. They're fractured into thirds. You have establishment Republicans like McConnell. You have Trumpists like MTG and Palin, and that Ohio gentleman that's going to try to go for the Senate seat. And then you have contemporary GOPers, right? Republicans, good old-fashioned Republicans, who just want to make money on the stock and read the Wall Street Journal, and just or you just have honest to God conservatives who just they're just God-fearing people who just want to work their job and feed their kids and be about their business. And this is the thing, in 2024, establishment Republicans are not. I feel like at this point, and polls show this, that they would rather abandon the Republican Party than go for any of this anymore. But let's see here. 2024 Trump remains 2024 candidate of choice for most Republicans. 59% of Republican voters said they wanted Trump to play a prominent role in party, but tens of thousands left after Capitol riot. That's still an exorbitantly high number, okay? And again, you're still, that's only going to increase as more people come out of the woodwork, and you have, instead of having legitimate arguments as to why people like MTG should be put aside, you have cancel culture take its place. Cancel culture is not a replacement. It is not a surrogate for dialogue, especially at the political level. You should not be carrying out, political proceedings of legitimacy and competency on Twitter. It should not happen. Josh Mandel, that's his name. The gentleman in Ohio, please sit the fuck down. But Josh Mandel, all in on Trump, on Trump's lane, right? I think we read this the other day. He's the Ohio State Treasurer. 43-year-old made his first bid in the upper chamber in 2012. 6 years later, he tried again, and so he's going to go for the Trump card, as they say. Trump tells OAN the MAGA movement is very strong and is getting stronger. Of course, he's going to say that. But, he was on OAN at the 7 o'clock hour on Wednesday to share his remembrances of his iconic conservative radio host, Rush Limbaugh, of course, yada, yada, yada. But the GOP is falling apart, and it's all his fault, so I'm not sure why they would have him on. But, yeah, the DNC is filled with some of the most incapable crony capitalists ever. Right? And people are like, oh my God, well, what about Republicans? It's like, well, here's the thing. The DNC is supposed to be the party of the people. So I feel like the party that everyone looks to for corruption is going to be not excused, but is going to be expected to be corrupt. It doesn't justify anything. It just is what it is. But when you look at the party of the people, that's what's worse, right? You two devils, one that tells you he's the devil and one that doesn't. And that's basically what we have. And that's why I don't support any of these people. However, when they get on board with decent policy and what is politically expedient for them and what is actually needed for us align, then you'll see me alongside them for that time being. And that's how it should be. But here you have an attempt by the DNC to try and introduce the possibility of rigging things going forward. Iowa and New Hampshire shouldn't vote first anymore, says former DNC chair Tom Perez. The status quo is clearly unacceptable. Let's read. Former DNC chair Tom Perez says his party should change how it votes for a presidential nominee. And how do you figure that should be? Unless it's popular vote, I'm not sure what you're thinking. But let's read. Democrats cannot keep voting like it's 1972, according to Perez, who says it's time to let others go first when it comes time to select a presidential nominee. The status quo is clearly unacceptable. I can agree with that. Perez, who headed the DNC during the 2020 nomination process. For 50 years, Iowa has been the first state to weigh in on who should lead the Democrats in the general election, followed soon by New Hampshire. In 72, that was a progressive reform. Previously, party elites made the choice with little direct input from their party voters. But both states are overwhelmingly white, far more so than the general public and the Democratic electorate in particular. Okay, that's a fair argument. A diverse state or states need to be first. The difference between going first and going third is really important. We know the importance of momentum in Democratic primaries. In 2020, the Iowa caucuses were narrowly won by now Transportation Secretary Buttigieg, and we can argue about that. You should also watch Bernie Blackout, by the way. With Vermont State, Bernie Sanders taking New Hampshire. Sanders also won the next state, Nevada, with the first with a significant population of color. However, it wasn't until the fourth contest in South Carolina that a state with a large black population voted. That state was won by Joe Biden. This is the Democratic Party of 2020. It's different from the Democratic Party and how we were in 1972, and we need to reflect that change. Okay, that's a fair argument. See how easy that was? You see, there's like, no, that's a fair argument given everything I said preceding this. If they are the party of the people and their party's constituents consist of more minorities than white people, then perhaps you should consider putting up a state that is at least more diverse than Iowa and New Hampshire. If Iowa and New Hampshire aren't considerations of consolidated agricultural and financial power, I don't know what is. Like New Hampshire? Yeah, so no, I concur. We talked about California yesterday. Hey guys, we've made it to COVID land. Let's talk some COVID. We talked about California's assistance checks, their golden state minimum checks. Another example of a politician I do not agree with, Gavin Newsom. But some of his policies have been really good. The ICU-related lockdowns, the ICU regionally related lockdowns, right? If your ICU capacity availability gets beneath 15%, then he locks your region down because that's really where it's at, right? It's not just because you have people who get COVID. A lady friend I'm talking to right now just got COVID, actually, now that I bring it up. I just found out she got COVID, and so I'm glad I've been staying away from her. But the point that I'm trying to get to is she went to the thing, got COVID, and now she's home, and she's like, okay, well, I'm just going to have to wait it out. That is actually, believe it or not, the mainstay of hospital visits. They have mild to moderate symptoms that they express, and they end up staying there for overnight or for observation or something like that, and then they leave after a day or so, and that's it. What needs to be related, what is relatable for me at least to severity is the ICU admission rate. When you have symptomatic expression of like upper respiratory infection, people can't fucking breathe. They're just entire lungs, their alveoli is filled with mucus and it's eating itself. All that shit. All the stuff that we were hearing about initially when we had the mutation in the summer and you started to see people getting the upper respiratory infections, and a little soon after you started seeing kids get it. Around then, that was a scary moment. That was a scary period, because the upper respiratory infections, things like that, that's a situation where it isn't necessarily, the disease that kills you, but the symptoms of it that get you, or the byproduct of a lowered, weakened immune system. You end up catching other things. What do they call them? Opportunistic viruses. But to finish my point, Gavin Newsom has introduced what's called the Golden State Minimum. So in concert with the $1,400 check that's going to be coming out in March. It's not $2,000. Perhaps they'll negotiate it back up again. Who knows? But that they came out the gate with 1,400, so it's probably not going to go anywhere from 1,400. Hopefully, not down at least. But in addition to the 1,400, he's going to introduce $600, so that's good. And then there's also other things, for schools and such like that. So good move, good step in the right direction. Japan kicks off a COVID-19 vaccination drive. Vaccination drive. Japan launched its inoculation drive on Wednesday by administering Pfizer's vaccine shots to Tokyo hospital workers. TV footage showed as the prime minister aims to defy the odds and hold the Tokyo Olympics this summer. After vaccinating the initial group of 40,000 medical workers, Japan plans to move to the remaining 3.7 million medical personnel who come into contact with COVID-19 patients, and then to the 36 million people aged 65 or above. 36 million people 65 or above. Good Lord. So, speaking of Pfizer, and this is Business Insider wanting me to sign up again. Don't mind that. Pfizer South African variant. Everyone's wondering if the vaccines are going to be effective against the South African variant. And see, that's what I was. That's what I've been waiting for. I mean, not that I've been like, oh my God, I can't wait. But no, Pfizer and Moderna vaccines have reduced effectiveness against South African variant. So we have B117, which is the UK variant, and I forgot the designation for the South African variant. But Johnson & Johnson's vaccine is like 65% effective against the UK variant, which we think is now becoming the dominant variant, which we believe is more, has a higher mortality rate. You following? You see the picture being painted here now? And yet at this time, we have states and cities all over the place relieving the lockdown. Now, this whole time you've been listening to me, if you've been listening to me since November, I've been an opponent of the severity of the lockdowns. Like I said earlier, I like Gavin Newsom's targeted regional lockdown. But the whole thing now is in disarray. The vaccination distribution's in disarray. The efficacy of the vaccines were already in question with the amount of AEFIs, adverse effects from immunizations that were happening. Now we have a variant of the virus that we don't know if the vaccines are actually effective towards. And we think that it's the dominant variant, and it may be deadlier. All of the pieces that we don't need to kind of manifest are kind of cropping themselves up. But we shall see. Only time. This is one of the things where we have to. It's like every 2 weeks we get a slight update as to what's occurring. But let's finish this up at the bottom of the show. The two coronavirus vaccines developed by Pfizer and Moderna appear to be highly effective against the more transmissible variant of the virus first detected in Britain. So the B117 variant, according to newly published studies in the New England Journal of Medicine, the vaccines, however, showed a decreased ability to neutralize the strain now dominant in South Africa, worrying some researchers and prompting Pfizer and BioNTech to announce they were taking necessary steps to develop a booster shot or updated vaccine. A day after Pfizer's announcement, a tight White House coronavirus advisor said each vaccine developer is planning to update shots to address variants. Now, here's the thing, right? And I've noticed this. I've been noticing this, and I wasn't too sure. And I'm not going to do it now. I'm going to wait until after the show. I'm going to have to just look through the archives of my articles. I don't want to go through the show. But we remember, and by we, I mean me, but we remember reading the articles who described how the South African variant and the UK variant, however different they were, mutated to become the same variant. Now, I don't, maybe I'm misremembering, and I'll have to go look. But now it's they've been talking about it as if they're two different variants. So from here on out, we will speak about it as if they're two different variants. But we have come to the end of the show, right? We almost get to COVID, and then it's just like, But yeah, speaking of COVID news, Cuomo's being sued by Dave & Buster's. The FBI is investigating him. Amazon, New York has actually sued Amazon, right? Amazon is under fire. This is why I told you, just like with Disney, the corona hit, Profits dwindled. They diminished by billions. So Bob Iger was like, I'm gonna leave with like a 100 at batting average. I'm gonna dip out. Same thing. Bezos, just around the corner, had the Amazon Union. He probably saw that. He probably knew somehow. Not somehow. I mean, the world's second richest man definitely has connections. But saw coming down the pipeline that that they were going to get sued, and just like, you know what? I'm just going to leave with a perfect record here and just dip out. Although it's not perfect because people have died. They have warehouse workers skipping bathroom breaks, working 18-hour shifts. They had multiple deaths. All that stuff. But anyway, I digress. Enjoy your weekend. Please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed what I'm doing here, things I'm trying. And yeah, be well to yourself and to each other. Take care.